Hi, everybody. So today we're going to be learning about the three branches of government and their roles in our American democracy. And it's kind of going to be about understanding how the American democracy works. So let's bring that over here. So kind of getting to the basics here, how the American government works. So the United States is a representative democracy. So that basically means that elected representatives speak and advocate for the people. However, the United States is a republic, and that's important to understand, is also a republic, and that is its primary category in terms of like type of government. So basically, this means that the minority opinion is protected from the majority. In a democracy, the majority can kind of rule things. However, in a republic, the minority still gets a say in how the government works. Now, there are three branches of government. This includes the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. And there's a system in place called checks and balances. And this is designed to ensure one branch does not become too powerful. The founders of America, when they wrote our Constitution, had just come off of the American Revolution, and they were very fearful of tyrannical rule and kings. So therefore, they made these three branches with these checks and balances to ensure that America never has a king like what they experienced under England. Now, there are two main political parties. This is the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And for our next lecture, we will kind of dive into the more in-depth what makes a Republican and what makes a Democrat. But it's important to understand that the Democratic Party is liberal, meaning that they have more of a loose interpretation of the Constitution, whereas Republicans are more conservative. They follow the Constitution very strictly. So our first branch of government that we want to understand is the legislative branch. So this branch makes the laws of the United States. This branch is also known as Congress, important to understand. And there's two parts that make up this legislative branch or Congress. Number one is the House of Representatives. These people are elected representatives that kind of represent specific districts in states. So there are 435 total districts, meaning 435 total members of the House of Representatives. The leader is the Speaker of the House. They're technically the third in line for the presidency. And our current Speaker of the House is Representative Nancy Pelosi of California. Now, the Senate is the second part or branch of Congress. Now, there are 100 of these. There are two from each state, no matter how populated it is. And this is kind of your check here, or a public part, where the minority is protected. In the House of Representatives, it goes by population. Therefore, the majority kind of gets a say. But the Senate protects even the smaller states where they get an equal amount of representatives. Now, the leaders of the Senate currently is the Senate Majority Leader, which is currently Senator Schumer of New York, and the Vice President is kind of the leader of the Senate. They break ties, and that would be the Vice President of the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, how does checks and balances work for the legislative branch? Number one, they can override a presidential veto with 2/3 majority vote. The Senate must approve presidential appointments, including judges. While the president is the commander-in-chief of the United States Army, only Congress has the power to actually declare a war. And the House of Representatives can impeach Supreme Court justices and executive branch officials, meaning like the president, vice president, and the cabinet. And then impeach means that we're going to bring formal charges against these people. And then the Senate would then hold a trial and vote on whether to convict that individual or not. Some of you may be familiar, former President Donald Trump was actually impeached twice while he was in office, but was not convicted either time. Moving on to the executive branch, which is our second branch of government, and probably the most famous, given that the leader of the branch is the president. Now, this branch executes the laws passed by Congress, meaning that they decide how to apply the laws, kind of enforce it, things like that. Now, the president is currently Joe Biden, and he is elected via a process called the Electoral College. Each state gets a number of electoral college votes depending on their population. The vice president is basically the assistant to the president and also presides over the Senate. Now, that is currently Kamala Harris of California. And the cabinet is a group of individuals appointed by the president to kind of handle other major tasks, assist the president. There are major parts of the executive branch, so that includes your Secretary of State, your treasurer, people like that, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, on the military side of things. So those are important people to remember from the executive branch. Like the FBI, like, so enforcing the law would also kind of be a part of this executive branch. How is checks and balances applied for the executive branch? Number one, the president can veto any bill that Congress passes. So if the Congress passes a law, the president, if he disagrees with it, then has the ability to veto it and decide that that law is not going to pass. And again, remember that the Congress can then go ahead and override that veto with a 2/3 majority vote. The president also is going to appoint federal judges. So this means Supreme Court justices, the Court of Appeals justices, any federal judge is appointed by the president and then would be confirmed by the Senate. He can also make executive orders if something is urgent. So Congress generally is going to be the ones passing laws, the legislative branch. However, if something is urgent, there's a long process that it takes to pass a law through Congress. The House of Representatives usually has to make it, and then the Senate will make adjustments. So this is a long process and drawn out. And sometimes a lot of negotiation is involved. If something is urgent and needs to pass right away, the president can then go full forward and make the executive order for something to happen. And this kind of gives him the power to check Congress if they are taking too long or something really needs to get done. Now, the judicial branch is basically is headed by the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. This branch interprets laws based on the U.S. Constitution. There are 9 justices on the Supreme Court. The current justices are Chief Justice John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and of course, most recently appointed by President Biden, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, they are appointed by the president, as you have already heard, and then they are approved by the Senate. So this is kind of another like checks and balances where these judicial people are appointed and approved by the other 2 branches. Now, once approved, however, they are approved for life. So they have a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. They will be there until they die or retire. That is a lot of power that we give the Supreme Court justices. They have kind of the most insulation, whereas like the president has 4-year term limit. Congress has 2 years and 6 years term limits for representatives and senators respectively. The Supreme Court has all that time. So they kind of can really just focus on the law and make interpretations based on the Constitution rather than worrying about what will get them elected. Now, they can declare laws and actions passed by the legislative and executive branches unconstitutional. And this is their way that they can check the other 2 branches. They can also set precedent for the laws we follow, and this is extremely important. Once the Supreme Court rules on a case, they set a precedent, and this is how we will interpret the law going forward. Now, a lot of people have obviously heard about Roe v. Wade recently and precedent possibly getting overturned by this current Supreme Court. So it's interesting to see how that will play out in the coming weeks and months. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you took detailed notes. for tomorrow's lesson. Come prepared with one question tomorrow about how the US government operates. I know that was a quick lesson and there's no way that I can cover everything in one lecture video. Hopefully you can come with your questions tomorrow and we will have a class discussion. Thank you. We will see you tomorrow.